Justin, long time no see. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing wonderful here. Got a frog in my throat, but I'm doing great. Yeah,
Yeah,
how
you
are you,
really do.
Zach?
I'm pretty good. Had a nice weekend. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Made one stop by the charger. Didn't go too well, but other than that, had a good weekend. At least I'm not paying for gas, right?
Okay, wait. Let's actually kick things off with this charger story. What happened? You haven't told me. I'm very curious.
Well, pulled into Electrify America, and only two of the four stations were working. Luckily, I was the only one there, so didn't really matter. But there was some like trial and error involved, which took about 5 minutes, and it was kind of stupid to be honest. I mean, uh, that's not how the automotive lifestyle is supposed to go. But in 2022, unless you drive a Tesla and have access to the mostly flawless supercharger network, that's what I'm experiencing. Is Electrify America is not perfect, far from it.
Y- Yeah, okay. So actually this is partly what we're going to talk about. The primary story we're going to talk about. I think we titled today's show something along the lines of like electric vehicles will fail unless we do this. And it's exactly that. It's the infrastructure piece. I thought we'd do a bit of a deeper dive on what's actually necessary and also the cost piece, so that people can be interested in buying EVs. Is this the first time you've run into an Electrify America charging station issue? And also we should mention there's a research paper that came out, I don't know, a couple weeks ago now, and it was all over automotive news because what was it? It was like 40% of chargers don't work or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, it was about 25% of chargers in California, which is a good place to sample because that's where EV adoption has been the quickest. They're already at like 12% EV market share in California. About 25% of chargers did not work. That's a lot in my opinion because imagine if oh, well, first of all, there's not like chargers at every corner like there are with gas stations. So
Exactly.
that's number one. But number two, I mean, imagine if it was that hard to find a gas pump that worked. Lines would be crazy. It just would be wild. So in
Well, wait,
preparation,
Justin, let's dig into that for a second here,
yeah,
right? Because we're already hearing of situations where people are going to charging stations, especially Tesla supercharger stations, and there's a line. Like you literally have to wait. And we did a video on the channel talking about how charging etiquette, like, hey, if your vehicle doesn't accept up to a certain amount, then go to the slower. Like we've had conversations about this. And then you go and one out of four chargers isn't working. Like, have you been to Costco? Have you ever gotten gas at Costco?
yes, I have, and I've sat in that
You
line.
Boom. Imagine you go to Costco and one out of four of those aren't working and there's still that line. Like that diminishes and takes away from the experience of being an EV owner.
Yeah, for sure. And I did encounter one wait on Memorial Day weekend, and that was weird because it's Electrify America. I've heard of Tesla superchargers having a wait on holiday travel weekends, but yeah, I had to wait for about 10 minutes to pull into a charger. Fortunately, my car charges pretty fast, but if I was sitting in a Chevy Bolt or a Nissan Leaf and I had to wait 10 minutes and then plug in for 45 minutes to an hour, I'd be pretty frustrated. I understand that there's some diehard EV drivers out there who will wait as long as it takes to charge, but when we're talking mass adoption, it's not quite there yet.
No, definitely not. I mean, this is one of the things that's going to hold back adoption, I think, for the foreseeable future. That and price point, which we'll talk about more in a moment. What's the latest on like federal government allocation towards infrastructure? Because obviously we talked about it the other day. I think it's gonna be a video that comes out this week or next week about the latest EV tax credits and how nothing's really changing there. So the incentivization from the government to get consumers to buy things isn't really there, at least not any stronger than it was before. What about on the infrastructure side, getting a charging network set up, having, requirements, things like that? Like, is there money allocated towards that?
Lots and lots of money. $7.5 billion dollars as of right now, but 7.5 billion dollars is just pocket change when you compare it to the over $500 billion that automakers themselves are spending on electrification. So 7.5 billion is currently being allocated to the states to build out 500,000 electric car chargers and what they're calling the National Charging Network. Fortunately, they are coming up with some standards and best practices that they're expected to implement as they build out the national charging network. They must be over a certain kilowatt power output so that they're really fast chargers and not just a bunch of level 2 slow chargers all over the place. They have to have the ability for plug and charge, which would be great when it comes to saving time because Right now, when I plug into Electrify America, I have to open up an app, click on the station, click on the charge port, swipe to the right, wait for about 30 seconds, sometimes a little longer, and then it
Hmm.
starts to charge my car. Plug and charge is what Tesla has, and that's another one of the things where you just plug it in and walk away, don't have to worry about it. So there's various standards that the national charging network is supposed to implement that should make charging easier for us. Now, I believe August 1st was the state deadline. Zach, is it August 30th or August 1st? But states
I
are
don't remember.
they're right now finalizing their plans for how they're going to spend the money that the federal government is distributing to all 50 states. Where I live in West Virginia, we could sure use a national charging network set of chargers going right through our state because right now it's just Tesla.
Yeah, and honestly, I think if in a void of having some sort of federal or standardized guidelines, actually don't even think it has to be federal. Like, look, Tesla's a bit of a monopoly. Tesla is a monopoly on EV charging in your state, and you know what? For Tesla owners, it's probably fine until eventually, as we all know, with monopolies, prices go up and you have no competition. This is why we do kind of like capitalism. My point being, like, one entity needs to set some guidelines so that then each state can implement those. But in lieu of guidelines and void of guidelines, I don't think you're going to see much progress happen. You're going to have situations like you were describing this past week where, I don't know, you just run into a shitty, crappy, excuse me, happy Monday, bad situation.
Yeah, and we've got a great question in the chat. Good morning to everyone. Are charging ports proprietary? Well, right now in the US, there are three types of charging ports, two of which make up 95% of EVs. You've got CCS with the combined charging standard, and that is in 2022, everything except Tesla vehicles and the Nissan Leaf. Tesla has their own Tesla charging port, and that's unfortunate for people like me because someday, if I wanted to use the Tesla supercharger network, let's say they open it up, I'd have to get an adapter to be able to fit into the Tesla port. But anyways, the Nissan Leaf has a very outdated standard, the CHAdeMO connector, and that's one of many examples of things that really need to be figured out and sorted out quickly to standardize the build out of the national charging network so that owning an EV doesn't require you to haul around a bunch of different adapters in your trunk.
Yep.
Sounds ridiculous, right? Imagine if we did that for gas pumps. That'd be dangerous.
Every state would be like New Jersey, where someone has to pump the gas for you. I actually want to pull up this comment. It came in. Where was it? Where was it? Maybe someone removed it. It was about those services that come to you and actually charge your vehicle for you. Well, here it is from Mark. I could see, if not done already, AAA offering mobile charging for emergency use at a substantial surcharge. So obviously in an emergency situation, but also just in general, like maybe that's part of solving the infrastructure challenge, is having the charge come to you rather than having to go to the charge.
Yeah, but here's the problem for at least the next several years until innovation solves this problem, hopefully. Those services, they're not able to provide a lot of power. It's going to be like maybe 10 miles of range, 20 miles of range, and even that is going to take you 30 minutes to an hour. Yeah. So
Wow.
these are not DC fast chargers that are mobile, driving around and plugging in and charging your car. That would be awesome, and I think that could be possible, especially as battery technology innovations get closer to solid state batteries becoming the norm, because they're much more compact, energy dense, and in theory they would be easier to transport. But for the next like 5 years, that's really for emergency use, or I don't know, like boutique charging services.
Yeah, it's going to
It's
be
not
more
for the
of like,
masses.
it's an edge case. It's definitely an edge case. That's for sure.
Yes, but in preparation for today's show, I did think about what needs to happen to
All
keep
right, let's hear it.
the electrification of the auto industry from failing, because I love driving an EV, and everyone that sees my car and takes a ride in a Tesla Model 3 and Model S, they love electric vehicles, and I just don't want this to be a huge letdown for all 350 million Americans, right? So after 3 months of EV ownership, my perspectives have really changed, to be honest.
Okay,
I now have a greater appreciation for the skeptics out there, and I feel like I could see it from both sides much better than I ever could before.
let's hear it.
We would be in a bit of a bind if everyone could go out and buy an electric vehicle right now. The infrastructure is just not there. I meet so many diehard EV fans. They love their cars. They love driving them.
Mhm.
but they pull into a charging station and the first thing they tell you is, "Yeah, I love my car, but this charging sucks." That's what they say, and sometimes there's some expletives involved. Um, yeah, it's just not there, and imagine if the everyday driver who does not care as much about, the latest innovations in automotive and EVs, they just bought, let's say, a Toyota BZ4X. Imagine if they plug in and they had no idea
Speaking of the
and
BZ4X,
they
yeah.
had no idea that they had to wait like 45 minutes to an hour to charge. And let's say they're in a hurry, they're going to see their family member in the hospital. That's going to be a really, really rude awakening. The
Yeah.
infrastructure just isn't there yet. But also, I've got a few other bones to pick.
Hmm.
Um, they're too expensive. Like we gotta think about how much money the average household sets aside for transportation. You can't be talking about average electric vehicle prices at $56,000 and bringing EVs to the masses. That just doesn't go hand in hand. So,
Yeah.
and then there's the concept of battery shortages. RJ Scaringe, CEO of Rivian, I agree with him that battery shortages could be the next big thing that we're going to be freaking out about in about 2 years' time. Um, I don't know, Zach. What do you think?
All right, couple thoughts going through my head. One is, especially on the price point. My dad and I, we did a video where we talked about on one of the shows recently. It was it was from Cox Automotive. It was the number of weeks of income the median household income in the United States takes to pay for a new car. And essentially, what the research was showing is, sure, the average new car transaction price is $46,000 right now, but the actual cost when you add in the financing charges is about 55,000. Let's just add 10 grand on top of the average EV purchase. The average EV transaction price last month was what? It was 55,000. 50, or
Yeah,
was it 65,000?
no, it's 56,000.
56,000. Add 10 grand for the finance charge, even though it's probably more like 11 or 12. So we're up to 65, 66,000, $66,000. The median household income in the United States is 70 grand. So you're talking about you're going to have to spend 50 weeks, 48 weeks of the year just paying off your new car? No,
Yeah,
absolutely no. Do you even think for a hot second that the new Bolt next year is actually going to sell for $26,000? If we've done anything
I
over the
hope
past 2 years
so.
building, I know, Justin, but hear me out. If we've done anything building YAA over the past 2 years, it's hopefully we've ingrained in people's minds 3 letters: OTD, out the door price. Okay, the OTD on a new Bolt's going to be at least 30 grand,
Mhm.
especially if you can't get the tax incentive. So it's like, all right, now it's 30 grand. I have the financing charge, which is probably going to, an interest I'm paying over time, which is more like 34, 35, $36,000. Like, even at a $26,000 starting MSRP, which who knows how many they actually make that are, base trim, EVs are just cost prohibitive. And
Mhm.
it's unfortunate, Justin, because the value prop is there. Like, you've done an awesome job on the YAA blog explaining to people, hey, if you buy this ICE vehicle or this EV, you'll pay more for the EV up front, but over the next 5 years, you're going to get paid back and break even if you drive, 15,000 miles a year. When you can't swallow the pill to even be able to do that, you're just going to keep paying these gas prices that are behind me.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that EVs are still for a specific use case and not for everyone, and that's not going to change in the next year or two, maybe after that, but you have to be driving at least 15,000 miles a year for the math to make sense, and even then, it's going to make sense in like 4 to 5 years when your break-even point comes along. If you drive 8, 10, 12,000 miles a year, you're going to be looking at close to a decade, maybe more, before you make up the difference in the cost going electric. Now, for people like me, I've got other reasons I like going electric. They are better for the environment. They still affect the environment. Battery mining is bad, but overall, better for the environment. Also, I like the quality of the ride. I like the silence of the electric vehicle powertrain. Zippy acceleration is always fun. So there's other reasons to go electric, but when you're looking at money, which is by far what most households must look at when making an automotive purchase, the math doesn't really add up for most households.
The one thing that's interesting, and I'm going to pull up Learning Fast. Learning Fast, thanks for all the comments in the chat. It's super interesting to hear, especially that you go to the drag strip. But this one, you don't pay for the whole car in a single year. That isn't a reasonable comparison. I 100% agree. It is. It just so happens to be the basis for the
It's a metric.
affordability index. It's
Yeah.
the affordability index that Cox Automotive puts out. So
Yes.
I'm just sharing, which we could poke holes in all day long, but it is an interesting perspective. Um, One thing that we haven't really hit on, and I don't really know like what actually happens in the future. Maybe EVs don't depreciate, Justin, like
Ah,
traditional cars
Zach.
do.
This is what I was gonna bring up next.
Like maybe that's a case to actually buy EVs now, bite the bullet, pay more, get your payback period, and 8 years from now, that EV isn't going to have depreciated in the same way that a typical ICE vehicle would have.
Well, this
And
is
that might
true.
be and that might be real because of the battery shortage piece that you brought up. As like if you can't produce more EVs, but people still want EVs, like maybe that helps. I'm not sure.
There's 2 sides to this because I love how my Ioniq 5 has gained, like, $10,000 in value, at least when you look at the used car listings. It's nuts. My $56,000 car is selling for $65,000 to $70,000. Weird.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the I'm also quite discouraged by how that means that those who typically rely on the used vehicle market because of affordability, they're not going to be able to go electric anytime soon because EVs are not depreciating in a way that would make them within reach to lower income households. So that's where you can get into the argument, well, does that mean incentives for used EVs are needed? Yeah, you could make that argument. But like I thought that by now a used Tesla Model 3 with like I don't know 100,000 miles might be $25,000. No, 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 no. It's much more than that. It's yeah. So that's
Let's do a
discouraging
quick
to me.
search. I actually I haven't I'm not in the market to buy a car. I follow the advice that we preach here. No interest in buying a car anytime soon. But let's do a quick peek, Justin. I'm curious. I'm going to the site. Let's do Tesla Model 3.
Let's find one with like close to 100,000 miles.
Yeah, so we're doing a nationwide search. Okay. And let's do I'm actually gonna we'll
Which
keep it distance
this is
nearest.
the
But
second top selling EV in America. Number one being the Model Y,
so you're saying mileage over 100,000?
about 100,000.
All right, so
Let's see what happens.
we'll go like 85. There we go. So there's 17 for sale nationwide. Look at these prices.
What's the mileage on some of these prices? Like the exact mileage?
96,000, 86,000, 87,000, 86,000. Let's click on this one. Let's look because this is
It's probably
ridiculous.
a
This is
performance model.
ridiculous. I okay, 86,000 miles and they're advertising it for sale for $71,000. What the
Wow.
I actually want to go to their website. Like I need to see this. Um Let's see. I don't think you can see my screen. Let me change.
So as sad as
Sorry.
this example is going for us, Zach, you can find your next electric vehicle on YAA's car search. So if you're in the market for an EV, we've got market insights on these listings, such as days on the
Justin,
market.
stop pitching our product, man. This
I-
is a national crisis,
This
dude.
is a
Look at
crisis.
this. No, you can pitch our products, but this is crazy. This is truly crazy. All right, maybe that's an outlier. Let's go back. Some of the other prices didn't seem to be as high. Like what was this first one?
I mean,
Let's do one that has photos.
a lot of them out the door are close to $50,000 with 100,000 miles.
Yeah, $46,000 out the door with 98,000 miles on it.
Well, let me tell you something, Zach, and I don't know if you quite are realizing this right now. So the 2018 Tesla Model 3, which I believe is what you clicked on, do you know
Yeah.
what the sale price for this direct to consumer Tesla was back in 2018 when this Model 3 was brand new?
I probably could find it on the blog somewhere, but you'll tell me right now. What was it?
It was in the low 40s, like $44,000, $46,000. It has not lost any value over 100,000 miles and 4 years of age. That's a little bit that's making me uncomfortable. I don't know about this. Like, is this okay? Should we do something about this, Zach?
Think about how for the past I don't know. I'll say 50 years, but I think it's probably more than that. Literally the entire institution of like buying, owning, leasing cars has been set up on the premise that they depreciate. Like that's how everything functions and works. And we've got comments like this in the chat, free car. Something's going to give here because either existing businesses that have traditionally made a ton of money off of cars depreciating are now going to think, okay, we need to get in a different business because cars don't depreciate like they used to. Or these EVs eventually are going to fall off a cliff and we just don't know quite when that's going to happen. Something's got to give here. Like this this doesn't pencil is the only like candid way I can like the math here doesn't work out. A Tesla with 100,000 miles on it should not sell for the same price it sold new. Like that fundamentally in our system can't work.
I agree. Now, what's the solution going to be? Well, you could say that GM, Ford, Toyota, all these guys will come along and just flood the market with a bunch of affordable EVs, driving prices down. But we're nowhere near that happening because they can't even make. Ford was only able to make 6,000 Mustang Mach-E's in the first quarter. That's not a lot considering that they're selling every single one they can make. And they're telling us, yeah, it's the part shortage. We can't make any more Mustang Mach-E's. Until we surpass this issue and then the possibility of a looming battery shortage, it's not going to get better.
And honestly, you got to keep in mind headlines like these. Electric vehicles are getting more expensive because raw materials costs have more than doubled to $8,000. Research finds this comes from, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, Alex Partners. My dad and I were talking about this on the channel the other day. The fact that it's doubled in raw materials costs to produce an EV doesn't bode well for an electric future. It actually bodes well for these older EVs continuing to appreciate in value because what you just said, like again, systems that have been set up to make lots of money, corporations have been set up to make lots of money. You know how Ford makes a lot of money? By driving the cost down and selling it for more,
Yeah.
not by having the costs go up. When the costs go up, the prices go up.
Yeah. And, I'm very pro EV, but one of our talking points, people like me who love EVs, 3 or 4 years ago, one of our talking points was, yeah, well, cost parity is just around the corner. EVs are going to cost the same as a combustion powered vehicle in just like 3 or 4 years. It's not headed that direction now, and it's pretty sad. Sorry, everyone, but I was wrong. Another interesting thing about that Alex Partners study was that they found that raw materials costs for combustion powered vehicles, for all vehicles, have doubled as well. It's just that electric vehicles require so much more raw material that you're looking at the difference being like between $1,500 and $3,000 in an ICE powered vehicle to going from $4,000 to $8,000 in an EV. That difference is substantial.
Let's talk about two things here, Justin, that are going through my head. Partly inspired by this comment from Learning Fast. They can't make Mach-E's right now because there's a stop sale for a recall. Now, I want to talk about two recalls, this one from Ford, and also obviously what's going on with Subaru and Toyota. Both the BZ4X and the Solterra, very few units have actually been distributed to consumers, but they have a recall because the wheels will fall off. I can't believe I'm saying that. So two comments here. One is we need to talk about what's going on with Ford and their EVs, especially the F-150 Lightning, not so much the recall. But let's start things off here. Toyota, we thought, was kind of limping into the EV game, and maybe they're going to look really, really smart with all their investments in plug-in hybrids. But
And
Justin,
just normal hybrids.
And just normal hybrids. But this is not a good look for them with their first model in the market. You can't get your hands on one right now.
Yeah. Everyone tells me recalls happen all the time. That is true. But the severity of a recall, it can definitely be teased out by the automaker saying, stop driving immediately, which is what Toyota has said with the BZ4X recall. Don't want to drive until the wheels fall off. Now, this would be the first
and this
quarter.
was a quick recall. This was quick. I just want to be very clear. I mean, there were only like 280 deliveries in the United States or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
They know this is serious. Yeah.
Well, at least they caught it early, right? But this is the first quarter of sales for the BZ4X, and based on the comments that I've been seeing on our very own video over on the YAA Electric channel, which if you're on the podcast right now, check out our YouTube show. The comments are basically showing me how many people are diehard Toyota fans, and I don't know if there's anything Toyota could do that would turn them off to the BZ4X. I mean, an hour charge times and 227 miles of range, they don't seem to be bothered by those stats. So I don't think the recall is going to keep them away from the BZ4X. But it would for people like me who are open to any EV from any automaker.
Definitely. And it's concerning, I guess, to be very clear. It's obviously new platform, new vehicles. Hopefully it's like, something that is, water under the bridge in a couple months and everything's resolved, but it's not a good look far from it. Obviously Ford with their recalls, I'm going to take a quick shot at Ford. Not too surprising. Remember with the Bronco rollout and the roofs on the Bronco? I mean, Ford's had their fair share of quality control issues. That being said, the bigger issue I think they face, we talked about this a lot last week on the Ray and Zach channel with my dad, is the prices for these F-150s is just, the Lightning F-150s is just unbelievable. I mean, like they're not even within the realm of reality. $50,000 markups appear
Yes.
everywhere. Used vehicles with 100 miles on them selling for nearly $200,000. Maybe this further builds the case, Justin, that we were talking about. EVs appreciate. They do, because the cost to build them goes up because the scarcity of them. But Ford's got issues being able to actually sell their vehicles at prices that are reasonable. That's for sure. Makes it almost a bit more elitist to have an EV.
Yeah, definitely feels weird to be maybe an elitist driving around. I don't feel like that at all. Don't, especially when I pull into a charging station, then half of them don't work. Like this
Yeah,
isn't fair.
yeah,
This isn't very elitist.
yeah.
Some other news I want to touch on. The 2023 Hyundai Ioniq 6 will be revealed pretty soon. And as a Hyundai EV driver myself, I am looking forward to that. So the Ioniq 6 is going to be kind of a rival to the Tesla Model 3. I'm not sure if any automaker can be successful at taking market share from the Model 3 right now. It has such a strong name in the game. In fact, a recent survey found that 3 out of 4 random people on the street couldn't mention any other EVs other than a Tesla. So that just shows
That surprise you?
No, not me, but I think it should be concerning for Mary Barra, Jim Farley, etc.
Definitely.
The Ioniq 6 coming along. We don't have any details yet because we're going to learn more about it later this week. So right now we know that it's a sedan, it's electric, it's from Hyundai, and they're trying to go after the Model 3's market share. The Ioniq 5 has been so successful that we have multiple media outlets saying that Hyundai and Kia, together with their eGMP platform, are the next in line to seriously compete with Tesla. We'll see if the Ioniq 6 adds to that perception, but we don't really know much about it yet. They've just been teasing images and saying, we'll let you know in a few days.
You think it's going to be a lower price point than the Ioniq 5?
Yes, but not by much. I'm guessing a starting price of around low 40s, maybe. Ioniq 5 starts at about 44,000 today. I would say we're looking at between 40 and 43,000 starting price, but it depends on how premium they're trying to go, because we've had executives from Hyundai recently saying that they're going to become a more premium brand, and reviewers
Who
are
isn't?
saying that yeah, exactly, Nissan says that too, but reviewers are saying they do. Reviewers are saying that the Ioniq 5 really has some qualities more akin to a Mercedes-Benz, which I've never driven a Mercedes-Benz, but I've sat in plenty, and I think that's a bit of a stretch. Still, we'll see. Are they trying to go more premium? Or keep it the same as the Ioniq 5? I don't know.
You got to imagine, like, so they obviously have the Genesis brand that's under the same roof. I saw someone in the YA community sent me a lease worksheet for a Genesis GV80, I think, and it was, or maybe it was a GV90. The lease payment, Justin, was like $1,300 a
Ooh,
month for a
nope,
Genesis.
no bueno.
Just like, how do people afford this? So if Hyundai starts to go up more upmarket, then Kia has to figure out a way to be the cheaper option there for more mass market. Yeah, we'll see. I'm curious to see what the press release says later this week.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm also curious to see how the states are going to be allocating that charging funding that we spoke about earlier today, because we should be learning about that pretty soon, and that's going to be transformative. It's really going to be a make or break moment for the electrification of the auto industry. If they can figure that out, that would be great. And EVs will have because I mean, imagine if 30% market share was electric right now in the United States. Imagine millions and millions. That's like, I don't know, when you think about the actual driving population, that's probably 50 million Americans pulling into stations and half of them work. That's not going to be a good look. So I am going to loop it back to our original topic, Zach, and say that electric vehicles, will they fail? Well, they'll fail if we don't get charging infrastructure on the road pretty soon.
Yeah, I bet you in the next few months we have more of a blueprint and an outline for what that looks like, because as these dollars get allocated, obviously plans for what they're going to spend them on will become more public. And obviously, as we get our hands on that, we'll be able to bring those and share them. Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. honestly, this morning's a bit sobering, just like really trying to piece it all together. There was a headline on Automotive News that talked about even as gas prices are rising, consumers are not stopping buying new ICE cars.
Yeah.
So like maybe the evolution's is, maybe we're still at the very, very beginning of this evolution. And that's, I don't say that's sobering because you can see how cost benefits will be there down the line, but hybrid, team
Yeah.
hybrid, like that kind
Team
of honestly
hybrid.
seems like the more attainable route right now. Great. Gets better fuel economy, could be lower prices for people, still
I agree.
reliable, cheaper maintenance. Yeah. So anyway, it's an interesting conversation. As we get more information, we'll bring it to light.
Yeah, and one closing perspective that's a bit of a silver lining. I
Hmm.
want to remind everyone that we're talking about lots of pessimistic aspects of the electrification of the automotive industry, but a lot of the skepticism tends to ignore the fact that innovation happens. We've seen innovation happen with the combustion engine over a century. Innovation is going to happen with electrification. We're already seeing completely new transformative battery technologies making their way from the lab to market. Innovation does have the power to change everything that we've been talking about today, bring prices down, make charging easier, all of the above. So I have hope for the research and development that's going on right now with EVs. I think it's going to be bringing us some surprises and hopefully saving the day this decade.
And back on the pessimistic side, if you want more of that, join us over on the Ray and Zach channel in about 30 minutes. We're going to be talking about the chip shortage, man. Not good news. Very much not good news that we just got this morning. Yeah, just join us. Toyota, some interesting headlines there. Just search YouTube, Ray and Zach. Our show will be at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific. Justin, thanks for having me on this Monday. I will see you maybe Wednesday, maybe Friday. Hopefully at least
Yeah,
a week
yeah.
from oh no, 4th of July is a week from today. We'll have to figure that out.
We'll figure it
But
out.
until then,
Thank you, Zach. And everyone, I'll see you Wednesday.
see you, Justin. See you guys.